When I was in college, I worked a summer job helping a small park service team maintain trails in a large forest preserve about an hour outside the city. Most of the work was simple clearing fallen branches, repairing trail signs, and occasionally checking campsites to make sure people weren't breaking any rules. The preserve was huge, miles of hiking trails that cut through thick woods and valleys. But there was one section of the forest the rangers rarely visited. It was known as the Lower Fog Valley. The name came from how fog would collect there almost every night. No matter the weather, even on clear days, that valley stayed colder and damp. The fog would roll in and sit between the trees like a blanket. Most hikers avoided the area because the trails were confusing. One afternoon near the end of my shift, my supervisor asked if I could check a trail marker near the valley. Someone had reported that the sign had been knocked over, and since I was the closest one on the trail system, he asked if I could swing by and fix it. It was about a 30-minute hike from where I was working. When I reached the edge of the valley, I noticed the temperature drop almost instantly. The air felt damp and cold, and just like everyone described, a thick fog was already sitting low between the trees, even though it was only late afternoon. The trail continued downward into the valley. At first, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind moving through the trees. Just the soft sound of my boots stepping on damp leaves. After about 10 minutes, the fog thickened so much that I could barely see more than 15 feet ahead of me. The trail marker I was supposed to repair was somewhere near the bottom of the slope, but I hadn't reached it yet. Then I heard footsteps, not mine. Another set of steps somewhere behind me on the trail. I stopped walking. The sound stopped too. For a moment, I thought maybe it was just an echo of my own steps bouncing off the trees. So I started walking again. A few seconds later, the footsteps returned, perfectly matching my pace. Step. I turned around quickly. The fog behind me was thick and gray, swallowing the trail completely. No one there. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded strangely muffled in the fog. No response. I stood there listening for a moment longer before continuing down the trail. My nerves were starting to kick in, but I told myself it was probably another hiker I just couldn't see yet. A minute later, I reached the broken trail sign. It had been knocked sideways and partially buried in the mud. I knelt down to straighten it and secure it back into the ground. That's when the footsteps returned. This time they were closer. Much closer. I stood up quickly and turned around. Through the fog, about 20 feet up the trail, I could see a figure standing between the trees. Tall and completely still. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Trail's a little confusing down here, huh?" The figure didn't respond. It didn't move either. I couldn't see any details of the face through the fog, just a dark silhouette of someone standing upright. "Are you lost?" I asked. Still nothing. Then the figure slowly raised its arm and pointed behind me. I turned instinctively. Nothing there. Just fog and trees. When I turned back toward the figure, it was gone. Not walking away, not fading into the fog, just gone. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my radio and considered calling my supervisor. But I didn't want to sound paranoid over something that could have been another hiker. So I finished fixing the trail sign as quickly as I could and started heading back up the trail. That's when things got worse. The fog grew even thicker. Within seconds, the trail disappeared completely beneath my feet. I couldn't see the ground clearly anymore, only vague shapes of leaves and dirt. Then the footsteps started again. But this time they weren't behind me. They were ahead of me, walking slowly toward me through the fog. Step. I stopped moving. The footsteps stopped too. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence. Then a voice spoke from somewhere in front of me, soft, barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." The voice sounded human, but something about it felt wrong. The tone was flat, almost emotionless. "Who's there?" I asked. No answer. The fog shifted slightly, revealing the faint outline of a person standing directly on the trail, about 15 feet away. The same tall silhouette I had seen earlier. It raised its arm again and pointed deeper into the valley. Then another figure appeared beside it. Then another. 3 tall silhouettes standing together in the fog, none of them moving, none of them speaking, just pointing. The voice came again, this time from somewhere behind me. "You're not supposed to leave." My entire body went cold. I turned and ran. I didn't follow the trail. I didn't care about direction anymore. I just ran uphill through branches and brush until I finally broke out of the fog line near the ridge. When I looked back down toward the valley, the fog had swallowed everything again. No figures, no movement, just a thick gray cloud between the trees. The next morning, I told my supervisor what happened. He listened quietly, then asked me one question. "Did they point down the valley?" I nodded. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. "That's why we avoid that trail after noon," he said. I stared at him. "Why?" He hesitated before answering. "Because every person who's gone missing in this forest disappeared somewhere in that fog valley. I've worked in a lot of places since then, but I've never gone back to that trail. And if you ever find yourself hiking in thick fog deep in the woods, don't follow anything that points deeper into it."